Good morning, folks. Hope you are all well. Thank you for joining us this morning on another one of the Emsi Burning Glass webinars. So my name is Karla Hoff. I am the head of further education and business development here at Emsi. And today we are going to be looking at the curriculum insight dashboard. So really a focus on how we can demonstrate to key stakeholders how provision aligns to local labour market and skills demand. So as always, I am going to kick off with a reminder of or a bit of an introduction to those who are new to us of who we are and what we do. So our mission at Emsi Burning Glass is to be the global authority on the labour market. And with that, a particular focus on leading that transition to a future of work that's based around skills and competencies. So we aim to provide insights and data across key sectors, such as education, predominantly within further education and the independent training provider space, and then economic development, so those community and government organisations. And really, we want to support our customers in making better decisions about the local labour market and in turn help your stakeholders and customers to make better decisions about their futures. So it's really our aim and our mission to connect the learner, the education provider and the employer with the common language of labour market and skills data in order to provide local labour market with the skills they need. So on today's agenda then, I'm looking to current drivers and priorities in the sector that we've been supporting our customers with. It subsequently shaped our development of the curriculum insight dashboard, and I'm really excited to kind of walk you through that in a little bit more detail today. We're seeing a fair bit of focus in policy at the minute, but as always, it's kind of second nature to further education on this importance of identifying, but really then kind of demonstrating how, as a provider, you guys are meeting employer skills gaps. So just to talk through some of the various things that we're seeing lately and kind of we have seen over the last 12-18 months, the Skills for Jobs white paper has now become a legislative bill that's been kind of in sector press day in, day out for the last 2 years now. And what this does is sets in stone a number of various requirements that are going to help providers achieve that aim of strengthening that link between employers and jobs, and really supporting people into getting the quality technical skills that their local economies need. So it's kind of the big focus. And with this, providers have been called upon to clearly illustrate that they know what the regional economy looks like in terms of that industry makeup, occupation makeup, what kind of jobs and skills demand are driving that economy, but then relay it back to what they're doing. So clearly demonstrating how that current provision aligns with those local employer demands. And we've heard a lot about things like accountability agreements, performance dashboards, and really the tools that this bill is going to kind of put in motion and ask providers to show, I suppose. And as part of that Skills for Jobs bill rollout, we've also seen the pilot and subsequent kind of finalisation of LSIPs, so the local skills improvement plans. Their overall purpose was to build a shared understanding around skills needs between the kind of all key stakeholders within a region. So the end goal is that education and training again leads to jobs that can improve productivity and support with those key growth industries, again both locally, regionally and nationally. And then following on from that, we saw the introduction of the SDF fund, so this strategic development funding, and this was really a pot of money to support providers in their activities in identifying and aligning provision to those local skills priorities. So I think we've seen the second round of that funding. It's been extended, and people are well on their way with kind of pulling together key reports and analysis on what their local economy looks like and how they're kind of adapting and pivoting provision to meet those needs. The levelling up agenda, again, really kind of in the background in the FE sector. The Skills for Jobs bill has really been the vehicle for this, but the levelling up agenda is all about boosting productivity, spreading opportunities and restoring local pride and local leadership. But the education element of that is again about identifying areas that need levelling up and being able to know what skills that workforce needs to kind of level up, I suppose. And then most recently, Ofsted, we saw the announcement of their 5-year strategy. And that key focus for FE was to start assessing all providers on how well they're meeting local skills needs. So kind of it was clear that there was a Q&A on the FE week from Paul Joyce that they've been asked to do this by the DfE to support the reforms detailed in the skills bill. And this very much sits alongside and kind of complements that existing requirement for providers to show intent and impact of their curriculum. So from September now, all kind of normal services and inspections have resumed. Very clear that we can see, expect to see inspectors spending more time looking for that evidence and clear evidence that shows how well leaders and managers are, one, engaging with key stakeholders to establish what those skills needs are, but then kind of two, how they're going to act on that and take that forward within curriculum planning. We've also seen an increase in need. There's been bits and pieces lately around this highly effective careers advice and guidance, and that really sits within that 5-year strategy for Ofsted, and it really fits nicely in what labour market data can help us do, given that informed good quality careers advice to learners and helping them make decisions on their careers going forward. So pretty clear then that from all that there's a strong need for colleges and independent training providers to be able to clearly understand a couple of things, I think. First of all, what their regional economy looks like in terms of industries, occupations, employer jobs and skills demand. And then secondly, how that current provision aligns with that local employer demand. So in order to support the sector with this imminent skills measure and accountability measures, we've designed an interactive dashboard which brings together achievements data, so DfE provide ILR data with our labour market insight and job posting analytics. So what we're able to do by pulling these two pieces of data together is give providers a high-level overview of that regional industry and occupational makeup, provide a supply and demand analysis of how well both their provision and then provision of the entire region, because we're not just looking at individual colleges when we're thinking about meeting skills needs and filling those skills gaps. It's really important that we look at this in partnership with what other providers are doing within a region and identify where there's areas of strength within a region and where there's areas that can be developed. So by pulling these bits of data together, we can also show how well your provision's doing against meeting that employer demand, but also how well provision as a whole within a region is meeting that demand. And then finally, that deep dive. So thinking about that intent requirement of Ofsted, how does each course area, how does what you do in terms of provision relate back to that local labour market directly? So what job roles and occupations and skills do your courses or subject sector areas translate into, and where is there areas for development in that sense. So I'm going to dive into the tool, and we're just going to have a bit of a whistle stop tour of the dashboard. I'm really excited to kind of walk through this in a little bit more detail. We've popped a few various things out there over the last couple of months as we've launched it, and the feedback's been fantastic, and we've really developed this with current customers. So how can we get a really clear, simple way of showing some of that data to key stakeholders to really show that this is what we do and why, and this is how we're helping local employers. So the first section in the dashboard is the local economy dashboard, which sits here. So what we're able to do with the local economy overview is really get a high level overview of that labour market within a chosen region. So we set the parameters in terms of the region that you serve. A lot of colleges and providers sit across lots of different local authorities and LEP regions. Build a bespoke area to kind of reflect the areas that you serve and the labour market that you need to support. So high level overview in terms of industry composition. So what industries and jobs are driving the region. And this is a 12-month snapshot. So we're really just looking at kind of a moment in time. What's going on right now? We're not worrying about the last 5-10 years. We're not necessarily looking too much into the future, but what's happening right now, so we can start to really help the employers that are kind of driving our region right now. So industry composition, top jobs driving the region, the companies that are driving the region and the occupations that they're asking for. And then we've got really nice headline figures like recruitment demand and whether that's grown within the last 12 months. Nice to kind of get a sense of recovery within an area after COVID, employment and unemployment. And it really starts to help us understand what are the biggest economies, biggest industries driving the economy at the minute within the region. What does that look like in terms of occupations? So what are the most active asked for jobs or roles, or kind of the roles that are driving the economy in the last 12 months. So in Basingstoke, for example, we've just chosen that as a LEP region. We've got a huge need for program and software development professionals, sales-related occupations, and nurses. We've also got the ongoing need for customer services and care workers and home carers. So we're looking at a really nice overview of the demand within the last 12 months. The companies, again, will show us the biggest employers in the region. NHS has kind of come out top trumps in the last 12 months in kind of nationally, but we're also then seeing some of those big players within a region. Really good idea, gives you a really good idea of what those key industries and companies that are driving the region right now, and can start to inform those high-level planning activities. Next, we have the regional and provider supply and demand analysis sections. So these two sections are exactly the same. One gives us an overview of all of the provision delivered within the chosen region. So again, Basingstoke and Deane on this occasion. And the other one will give us an overview of the individual colleges provision delivered within that chosen region. So you're getting an overview of all provision by all providers, all kind of general FE, independent training providers, sixth form colleges within a region, and then you can pick out your individual provision and look at that in more detail. So here we're using ILR achievements data taken from the DFE data set that you will submit to every single year, and this will be for the last academic year. So we break this out into total numbers by AIMS achievements. So for the whole of the region, for example, as of last year, there's 10,762 AIMS. We then translate that into full-time learner achievements. So using guided learning hours, we identify basically the number of full-time learner equivalent achievers that will be entering the labour market. So if we look at the provider side, we've got 6,154 aims achieved at this college. This is a fake college with a real region, which is the equivalent to about 1,685 full-time learners who entered the labour market in the given year. So then we can start to understand the breakdown of that number then. So the first table shows the number of full-time learners achieving qualifications in each of these SSAs. So you've got those 14 high-level subject sector areas, along with the number of learners that achieved a qualification or completed a course within that area. And then this green dot shows us the kind of nationwide equivalent, so the average equivalent as comparison. We then carry out a unique mapping exercise for the demand table, which will link those 14 subject sector areas across to the group of occupations, so by SOC, so Standard Occupation Classification Code, that they typically train for. So all of the business admin and law qualifications or courses will typically train for a number of jobs within the labour market, and within that region we think there's about 1,190 jobs available in that time period. So what we're able to do by attaching the subject sector area to a group of occupations is then attach labour market data around annual job openings, and then lots of other things such as wage data, education level, etc. So supply is the college supply numbers, so the achievers or the full-time learner equivalent numbers for that academic year. The demand is the number of jobs within that area, within the given region that we've chosen. And then we give you a gap analysis. So by looking at total achievement numbers against the total number of associated jobs, we can then pull out areas where there's potential oversupply or undersupply. So this is the difference basically between the number of learners that a provider is releasing into the labour market, I suppose, and the number of jobs that typically trains for within that subject sector area. So if we look at this provider, then we can see that there is a potential growth area then in somewhere like business admin and law. They have some provision, but there's a gap of about 1,000 jobs that definitely can kind of be filled. And looking at the regional outlook as well, there's a gap regionally that can be used to kind of tap into. And then we can also look at areas of potential oversupply. So if we're looking at things like languages, literature and culture, there's an oversupply of about 75 learners to jobs. Leisure and tourism, again, you kind of take this into consideration with other pieces of data and other things like learner level, where they might go for jobs further afield, for example. But a really good starting point to kind of start understanding the direct link between the provision that you're offering, the number of learners or achievers you have, and the jobs within the labour market. So it starts to give us a better insight into those region-wide skills gaps, and then support a more joined-up approach in the decision-making process and going forward. The last area in the dashboard is the subject sector area analysis. So we've got a drop-down box at the top here. This is your 14 high-level subject sector area ones. And really this allows your curriculum heads or your VPs of curriculum to basically pick their own area and then deep dive into the detail, and really understand what that number is, what it's made up of, and where the jobs are. So if we choose information and communication technology, we'll look at that in a little bit more detail. So as we start to think about kind of the high level jobs then that the high level numbers that we've seen, then when we start to think about adapting provision to meet ever changing skills needs, I think by looking at the industries that are driving the sector, it's the most important starting point. So we have curriculum. How do we then reflect the ever-changing needs of the economy, especially after something like COVID? What the subject sector deep dive allows providers to do is to not only understand the total number of achievements and the competitor analysis on what % of the market share they have in the region, but then we start to kind of connect top industries and occupations, employers and roles that this course area currently needs to try and support. So if we can have a look at the recruitment demand for information and communication technology, we can see that the learner achievement number in 2021 was 129 learners. This amounts to about 4.7% of market share. And then we can see the recruitment demand and the projected annual openings over the next 7 years. Key industries driving this region in this type of subject sector area is predominantly human health and social work activities. So at a glance, we might look at this subject sector area and naturally maybe think of jobs like IT engineers, web designers, IT user support. But as we start to work through the data, we can start to see that the key industries are human health and social work and transportation and storage. And what we're actually looking at in terms of job titles is things like software engineers, net developers, front-end developers. We then can look in more detail at the hard and soft skills. So a heavy focus on programming language skills within those human health activities and transport and storage industries. The top companies that have been looking for occupations and job people to fill those job roles within the region are basically advertising for these types of hard and soft skills. So in terms of really understanding what local employers are asking for and then reflecting that back into provision, when we think about those key drivers from the Skills for Jobs Bill, Ofsted, there's no better way really of being able to do that than using the most up-to-date, detailed level of job postings available. So each one of these would allow you to walk through chosen subject sector area and fully understand achievements and market share, whether that recruitment demand is growing or declining, the key industries within that occupation. With me a second. And then some of the detail around that. Okay. So I hope that has been a useful kind of overview then into the Curriculum Insight dashboard and how it can start to support some of those key drivers, the kind of Skills for Jobs Bill, Ofsted, the Levelling Up agenda, and really what they're all calling for is providers to be able to understand and most importantly demonstrate how well the courses are aligned to local job demand. So by giving you presentable, actionable labour market and skills data coupled with your own provider achievement data, we're hoping that that can give you assurance that you can easily identify what your subject sector areas are and how well they're aligned with those employer needs. So the link for the demo dashboard site is just on the bottom of the page there, and really go onto that link, sign up, and you'll get an access code to be able to have a look at that in more detail on your own. A little bit of a reminder about our webinar next week. So we are running a webinar in partnership with Western College. So we've got guest speaker Ben Knox, who is the assistant principal for students at the college, and this webinar will be around using labour market data to help students understand their potential career pathways. Again, if you just type in Emsi UK webinars, it'll take you to our webinar page on our website, and you'll be able to sign up for that. And that is next Wednesday at 11 a.m. So log on to our website and sign up for the free demo access, but alternatively just drop me an email. You get the slides and the recording as always, but give me a call or drop me an email, and I'd love to chat in more detail about how the Curriculum Insight dashboard can help support you. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the sunshine this afternoon.